Welcome to the InCred podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the InCred podcast. We are extremely happy to once again welcome Mr. Sanjay Mehta, who's a veteran in the branding and digital marketing space. And the topic that we will be discussing today is something that's relevant for almost all brands, irrespective of the kind of product or service you deal in. With COVID changing how we function in our day-to-day life, marketing has really witnessed a huge change, especially with consumer behavior being altered drastically. So today we will cover 5 tips that marketeers from any industry can utilize in order to stay relevant or perhaps even thrive in these changing times. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sanjay Mehta. All right. So, hi, Sanjay. Welcome back. We are very happy to have you with us again on this podcast. All right. So Sanjay, we have a very interesting topic where, we want to understand from a veteran like yourself who's worked with multiple brands across multiple sectors. If you had to summarize these 5 key marketing tips that any different businesses of different sizes can sort of use in these current times, what would those be?
So, these are obviously challenging times in terms of, the pandemic and the consequence of the pandemic in terms of distribution of material or, purchasing, the demand at the consumer level. So, depending on what industry one is and what kind of prospects one is looking at and what kind of opportunities are out there, you still want to invest in marketing to ensure that you make the most of your opportunities. Finally, it's as a business, you do want to, kind of go through this period in as best a way as you can and come out on top at the end of it and then thrive thereafter. Alternately, you could actually be in one of those industries which is a beneficiary of these times, as some of them are. Like for example, if you're in pharma or healthcare, or if you're in some kind of electronic delivery of some services or something. Some of those industries have, of course, benefited from the current pandemic and people staying at home and all that. So either ways, if you are in a good place and you want to be sure that you're maximizing, you're kind of making the most of that opportunity. And in other cases, you want to be sure that you're doing as best as you can to stay afloat and maybe, at least do better than your competitors and things of that kind. So here's what the recommendation is that, okay, sorry, actually, even before I go to the recommendation, I will have one more data point that I want to share.
Mm-hmm.
Is that historically, and then there have been crises in the past also, and maybe the current crisis is probably bigger than anything which any of us saw in our lifetimes. But no matter that, either as an economic crisis or financial crisis or economies and countries have gone through periods of crisis. And what has been the few learnings from a marketing and business standpoint in the crisis is that during crisis, most companies and most brands tend to clamp down on marketing.
Right.
So, however, some of them will do reduce marketing, and there'll be a rare few who will do as much as they were doing before, or perhaps even more than what they were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
And data points from the previous crisis point to the fact that the ones who reduced their marketing spends in a crisis, at the end of the crisis, lost market share much more than the percentage of marketing spend that they reduced. The ones which maintained marketing spend and marketing efforts to the level at which they were, they actually grew some 20-25% in terms of the market share when they came out of the crisis. And the ones who increased their marketing spend and marketing efforts in the crisis actually came out of the crisis with a 2x to 3x kind of a growth in terms of the market share that they had in general, in terms of the growth levels. Now, there is a logic to it, right? So when large number of brands stop their marketing efforts or dramatically reduce it, in front of the consumer, the clutter becomes less. There are
True.
fewer brands in your face as compared to when times are good. So in those times, if there are brands who are still maintaining their presence or their spends, they get higher than normal visibility in front of the consumer because the clutter is less. Plus, if you look at pure digital marketing kind of space, the same money buys you more impressions
True.
in terms of the digital impressions, because the cost of impression has gone down because of lack of competition for the impression. So for the same money you spend, you are visible a lot more, and hence because of that, you are able to get better sort of brand recall and better impact in terms of business. And the ones who increase their spends are coming out looking like you're you're the king in a sense. You're the brand who must be doing really well, or you're the best brand because you're still visible, and they get disproportionate increase for the kind of monies that they are spending. So the learning is that if you are in a position, if you're like really not stretched for making your ends meet, as some industries are today, then I would still say that find a way to continue to spend your marketing budgets and marketing efforts if you are in a position to increase, and go ahead and increase as well, because it will give you benefit at the end of the day. That's sort of tip one. The tip number two is especially when people are, as a consumer, people are not necessarily in a great shape. Many of them are sitting at home bored, with entire families, husband, wife, kids, everybody working at from home, little stressed out. At that point, you have to be empathetic in your communication. So your communication can't be all, "Oh, it's so great, such great times, hunky dory, love," because you need to connect with the mindset of your consumer at that point. So your language, your communication has to connect that way, and it has
Right.
to be more of empathy, or even perhaps your advertising or your communication, your marketing could even be addressed at the consumer issue which they are having, and perhaps how your brand can also help them, or as a company you are willing to extend some support or service or something which can help them. So then there is a better connection between the brand and the consumer at that point. The other thing to think is that you are right now in let's say in a kind of difficult times in the economy, but like everything, this too shall pass. So when it does pass, and of course, none of us now at this point know how many months or what it is going to take, but things will start to near normalize and then become normal and maybe come out of it. Now, at this point, your first priority is to protect your sort of your business, right? So at least do the best that that allows you to stay afloat and at least get you enough revenues, enough profits to manage your this survival. Normally before crisis, you must be having high growth targets and everything. Even if that doesn't happen, you need to survive. So what that means is that your marketing effort needs to be focused on conversions wherever. So out of your entire potential market opportunity that you have, you believe that a certain kind of an audience or certain kind of a geography or something gives you the best chance of conversion of business. Focus largely on that instead of focusing on the larger target which you might have done earlier, because you want to use the money to see that how you can convert it the best in terms of customer acquisition or growth or whatever. So that's the current situation. Having said that, what you want to also be able to do so if you're a company with multiple products and multiple SKUs and all that, you want to zero down on what is working best, what is required best today for your clients, for your consumers. So if you are, let us say, a fashion brand which has products from like a lower sized, lower price points to very expensive luxury clothing as well, you are clear that at this time there are not too many big marriages happening, not too many parties happening, and your high end wear is likely to not have too much of a demand.
Right.
But there is a good demand for home, clothing or whatever, figuring out what works best at this time, ensuring that you are focusing on those categories or those subcategories in your range, making sure that you have good range to offer in that, so at least the consumer feels that they have a choice in that, and delivering. Now, it could even happen that as a brand, you were a luxury brand to begin with, so you don't have a category which was supporting this. Can you construct some temporary brands? Look, I mean, this might be a bit of a joke, but we have heard that, Louis Vuitton has come up with a mask. I
Hmm.
mean, it's. I mean, when I see it, and I find it funny, but look at it not in the literal sense, but in a metaphorical sense, that even if you are a brand which has a, ordinarily you were working on the top of the line, is there a
Hmm.
way for you to create something which is relevant for the market today and ensure that you are still staying connected to your consumer? Otherwise, you have a big risk that for 5 months, 6 months, consumer doesn't even connect with you because he doesn't need you, doesn't
Right.
see you. Then you have a bigger challenge post crisis when things come back.
Hmm.
And then the final point is, in a way, to start thinking about what the new normal will look like,
Hmm.
especially from your business and your category. So if you visualize that, as you start thinking, start reading, start actively engaging, and understand that what will be that space, how things are changing, how the consumer behavior is changing, how their life is going to change, and where will you fit yourself best in that space, and already work on preparing yourself for that in terms of your production capacities, in terms of the combos or the new kind of product output that you are getting ready and being available
Hmm.
with, maybe the new levels of distribution, maybe making sure that you are there on e-commerce or something, because
Hmm.
people are not likely to go and shop in stores as much. Whatever
Right.
it is that you need to be ready, that's your almost again another tip, because you want to be having what we refer to as the best bounce back velocity. So when you
Hmm.
come out of things at that time, if you started to think that, oh, okay, now this is the new normal, now let us see what we should do about it, you're losing space and time to a competitor who might already have prepared himself for that new normal, and he is up and running in no time, whereas you are still thinking about, okay, now what should I do? So
Hmm.
constantly anticipating the oncoming future and becoming ready for it by preparing yourself in all respect, whether it's products, whether it is distribution, whether it's pricing, whether it's whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And as soon as you sense that normal, being out with it and being one of the first to be there, so you have the highest velocity of bouncing back as a brand, as a business. So
Hmm.
that's the thing to be doing with. Yeah. So those are some of the tips I have for
Okay.
any kind of thing. Yeah.
Great. So I think Sanjay, the tips were quite handy. And just to summarize them, I think you covered it very well. Where if a brand still has the budgets to spend, and in fact exceed that, as you mentioned as the first point, I think that would, I agree, make sense for a brand. But this brings me to my question about budgets in general, right? Because especially now, the budgets allocated to marketing are sort of dwindling. So I feel
Mm.
at this point, many companies would sort of decide to spend a bit more on R&D, perhaps because they are maybe not selling as much, or there's a lull period, so it gives them time to do all these things. So
Right.
that makes, again, budgets become a concern. So are there any quick hacks or any sort of marketing techniques that have worked with limited budgets? Any frugal marketing techniques that you've done in the past and it's worked for brands?
Yeah, I think the point about frugal marketing is just essentially being very performance focused on your marketing effort. So I
Hmm.
mean, for example, in doing search engine marketing is
Hmm.
pretty frugal in that sense, because you are responding to a demand, a query which comes from the user. When it's the user is demanding that question, that where can I buy so and so, or what is the price for
Hmm.
so and so. Now you are responding to those kinds of keywords and phrases which are very indicative of an intent to purchase. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, you want to be sure that you are there and, with your proposition in front of the person who is searching, because that has the highest chance of conversion if you have a good thing to offer at that point in time. So that's an example. But in general, uh, if you are stressed for cash, then you may not spend on extravagant brand building
True.
activities. You will focus more on sort of result oriented. Now that could also
Hmm.
include, supposing you're selling through a marketplace, like you're selling on Amazon or Flipkart or something. If there
Hmm.
is money to be spent on the platform to show up ahead, like supposing you
Hmm.
are one of 25 brands in your category and everybody is selling on Amazon, and if somebody goes
Hmm.
and search and see it in some order, how can you make sure that you come out on the top, right? So then
Hmm.
you find a way to do some advertising on the platform, because
Hmm.
again, that is the point where somebody has come with an intent to buy,
Hmm.
and so your spend there has the highest chance of converting into actual business than just putting a display banner somewhere on a side, uh, hoping that somebody will click and maybe interested in buying. So there's a
Right.
higher level of wastage versus so
Hmm.
intent, consumer intent responsive advertising, which has the
Hmm.
best chance of conversion. But see, the counterpoint a little bit to this also is that
Hmm.
an over dependence only on performance marketing
Hmm.
is it means that you are not letting the consumer kind sort of build a certain perception around your brand. You're just catering to a need which they have expressed, and maybe you're the cheapest at that point or something or the other, and you get the business.
Right.
But what will happen is that as soon as you and your competitors, all of them have money, there's going to be a
Hmm.
bidding war there. So
Hmm.
a bidding war, if you have to bid high to get the same customer, it is all happening at the cost of your margin. And
Hmm.
it's a no-win situation. Finally, you're going to bid so much that it doesn't become viable to sort of get that customer. And the same thing will happen even on the Amazon or such platforms, because everybody will want to be the first. So
Right.
everybody may kind of bid and want to be ahead. Now, the only brands who don't necessarily have to fight this war is where
Hmm.
the consumer goes and looks for the brand. That I
Hmm.
want to buy so and so brand footwear, or I want to buy so and so brand, clothing or something, because the brand has generated that sort of a pull for
Yeah.
themselves. So then I don't need to, even if I go on Amazon and I search for a brand, I don't
Hmm.
care if some other brand was on the top or the first row, because I want a particular brand. So that has happened as a result of having invested into a brand building activity over the years,
Hmm.
where you've generated a customer preference for your brand, and they are not buying yours because your result shows up on the top or you are the cheapest, but because
Hmm.
they want your brand and your brand alone. So overall, of course, it's a prudent thing to do is to do both brand building as well as performance search engine and such marketing. But
Right.
if money is a problem and survival is a key, then at least you spend on the search marketing and things like that, where at least you get your business to keep running day to day till a point of time that again things have improved, and then you want to reinvest in brand
Hmm.
building.
Right. Makes sense. So basically, it should ideally be a balance of brand loyalty and the performance part of it. But depending on the budgets, this can be fluctuated, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
The spend. Okay. And lastly, I think one of the points that you mentioned was very interesting, which is envisioning what the new normal will be like. So, according to you, what would this new normal look like, say, in the coming few months? How do you see the scenario changing? Consumer
It's very
behavior.
hard to
I.
it's very hard to crystal ball gaze on this one. But I
Uh-huh.
mean, few things seem to be clear. I mean, I mean, I think in many ways we are probably already living the new normal. I mean, that's a
True.
lot of us feel that okay, this is what life is going to be for a while now, until a
Yeah.
vaccine comes and until everybody feels really confident and comfortable to go around everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
whether you're sitting at home and whether you're working from home, or hesitant to step into crowded areas, hesitant to go for a sports event or a music show or something like that. All of
Hmm.
those things I mean, I can't easily envisage when they will return, because there will always be the fear of getting into crowded places.
Right.
So in ways we are, say, living in a new normal. But so from a marketing standpoint, what does it look like, right? It
Hmm.
looks like there are a lot of people who have been hurt either because of job losses or
Hmm.
salary cuts, and those are people, so their earnings have gone down.
Yeah.
Maybe on the other, so many of them have found a way to live at a lesser cost, because a lot of the non-essential spends are not happening. You don't party just like that. You don't go for movies. You don't go for entertainment as much as. So there was a certain money spent which was happening in all those things, travel and vacation and all.
Travel.
It's
Yes.
not happening.
Yes.
So your cost of living has also gone down. Some
Hmm.
people who were living in rented homes in a different city have chosen to go back to their homes and work from there, because it doesn't matter if you're living in Mumbai or in Nagpur, wherever you came from, because you're still working from home. So people have adjusted in many different ways, and things have changed. But I think,
Right.
irrespective of consumer sort of incomes and disposable incomes, somewhere the sentiment is definitely a little low. I don't see at this point people aggressively coming out and getting new jewelry and new cars and new
Yeah.
homes and all that. So
Hmm.
that in some sense is a part of the new normal, and some other sense, the convenience of ordering from home, irrespective of the fact that today some stores are open, but last 4 or 5 months I've been ordering online and it's coming home,
Hmm.
and I realized that even if I was not a regular e-commerce shopper before this, now
Hmm.
I kind of have tasted blood, and I feel that, look, it works, and it works.
Yeah.
Sitting at home, it works. It just comes home. So for the essentials, why do I need to go anywhere? I know what brand, I know where to get it from. So that
Hmm.
is again a permanent shift of sorts.
Hmm.
Another permanent shift, because you have not been going around, and there are not too many entertaining and all is not happening. Even your expenses on clothing and cosmetics and all those
Yes.
things has come down, because you're mostly working from home. Like, what do you need?
Hmm.
A couple of pairs of clothes, and things can work. So those things have also changed. So the consumption demand, is also changing.
Hmm.
So different contours to different aspects of consumer behavior. Now, how do you connect it back to a marketer? Marketer needs to figure this from their own category and their own brand, and see that how is the new consumer behavior relevant for him, right?
Hmm.
So the story starts there. That's something which each person, each company, and each brand has to decipher for their own self, because they know what exact space they operate in, what is the kind of consumer they cater to, where in that consumer's life is that need felt for their product or their category, and how do they fit
Hmm.
in, and what changed about that. So if you were it's like how, if you some of the hotels have, especially just outside Mumbai city limits, of, for example, like in
Hmm.
Lonavala and all, reposition themselves as staycation resorts,
Yes.
right?
I've seen a
So
lot
you're
of
going
that. Yeah.
home. Yeah. So it's an interesting swing, right? Because you could have been in that hotel and say, "Oh my God, travel is gone. Who's going to come to my hotel? I'm going to be in deep
Hmm.
trouble." And the other way to think is, okay, so consumers are getting bored sitting at home. They're not taking a big vacation. They're not flying around, but they want to change. And
Hmm.
2 hours, 3 hours drive from home will be something that they can easily do. So how about we position ourselves as these staycation resorts, which gives
Hmm.
the consumer the necessary break from their boring monotony which they've had for last 5 months,
Yeah.
and at the same time they can come here and we'll give them Wi-Fi, and they can keep working from here for a week, 15 days, 1 month. And it's a very interesting response to the new normal, right? So
Hmm.
that's the way everybody needs to think for their own brand, that how do you kind of transform yourself to become interesting to your customer even in that new normal, and that's how one has to start sort of thinking.
Right. So true. So making the most of the opportunities that come our way, basically.
Exactly. And
Right.
it's not, it would sound, when I see the staycation and you say,
Hmm.
oh, it's so correct. It's very nicely
Yeah.
done. But if till the first guy didn't do it, I mean,
Hmm.
did the industry think like that? Did everybody think like that? And there'll be, for the few ones who have converted, There'll be many others who are still sluggish in response because they are not
Yeah.
thinking that way. And that's what differentiates. And the ones who survive, I mean, as I think there's this statement attributed to Charles Darwin that finally the species that will survive is not the biggest or the best or whatever. It's the one which learns to adapt the best.
Right.
And
So true.
that's the thing with his. How are you adapting to this change? And the better you do it, the better chance you have of surviving.
So true. Great, Sanjay. I think that was a very, very good talk. I think there is a lot that people can utilize and sort of articulate in their communication, because honestly, it's not been an easy time for most industries, and especially marketing as a function has sort of seen this transformation. So I think these tips would come in very handy. So before we end today's session, if there is absolutely anything you would like to sort of convey, any parting message in terms of how one can adapt, or any learning from your end that you'd like to share?
Um, I think just one part which I'm seeing in the market today is that at least so far, I mean, it's like the interesting thing is maybe this whole income and cost of living balance is at a very large level in at least a certain kind of demography in cities and urban markets and all seems to be playing out such a way that people do have liquidity and money.
Hmm.
The fear that everybody will be panic mode seems to be not there. And to even to the extent that some malls and all have opened, people seem to step out. People want to change. People want to go and buy things and stuff, which only points out that if you're a marketer, if you have a brand which can fit in, we're a large country. There are all kinds of consumers. There is a good chance that you can get a good good uplift. So don't hesitate to go out and do your marketing, because you might be even with your own personal perception that market is so bad and all, you might be
Hmm.
surprised that there are enough takers for your products, your business, your category. And because nobody in your category is marketing and you are the one who's doing it, you
Hmm.
might turn out to be the beneficiary of that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Great, Sanjay. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully, sometime soon, we can have another insightful session from you. But for now, that
Sure.
would be it. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for giving us your time. Thank you.